Hi there, today we're going to use pen and ink to create a lighthouse using primarily the hatching method. In a previous video, I showed you a lot of different kinds of hatching and markings. Hatching, which is one parallel line, and then cross hatching where you cross it back over, like cross the lines back over. There's tick marks, scribbles, stippling, and cross hatching, which is like a woven pattern. There's so many different kind of markings that we can use to create with ink, form and value. And today I wanted to specifically practice hatching with lines. And so I've created this lighthouse that I'm going to demonstrate, and the rocks and the lighthouse are primarily hatching, which is using one parallel line to create the form and value. And so in this, I'm gonna try to steer myself away from using other markings because I wanted this to be hatching practice. But there are a few dots, a few little scribbles here and there just because I really can't help myself. But this is a hatching exercise. If you wanna grab a pen and paper and hatch along with me, I think one of the things that I'm exercising in my pen and ink practice is to just learn the markings, like the good ergonomics of the markings, how to hold my hand, how to focus on the quality and not the speed. So I'm slowing myself down intentionally and practicing how I hold the pen, how I lay the markings down, and then just to really think through, because I tend, as I've said so many times before, I let my pen dance all over the paper. I'll be here, there, everywhere, scribbles, stipples, hatching, cross hatching, and that's great. It's fun to let go that way. But then sometimes we gotta dial it back and actually just practice a certain marking, the way that we're laying it down, making sure we're using good form. And so that's today. Today is hatching and hatching a lighthouse. Lighthouses have been speaking to me lately, and in fact, I also want to just show you this. I went on a bit of a tangent with the lighthouse theme and also with rocks, okay? So I have a sketchbook that I doodle in typically at night before I go to bed. So I have this like series where I was really doing what I mentioned before, where I was scribbling all over the place. Then I thought, you know what, I really want to study the light sources on rocks and how that looks. So I actually drew my little light source and worked at creating, like thinking it through where the lights and the shadows were. I did this one, was another YouTube tutorial, and I actually really like it, and would love to take more tutorials like that. Then this one here, I like made the darks darker, like really colored them in, and the lights, I like you can see on the rocks, I kept the markings farther apart just to be a little more dramatic. And then I also played around with different lighthouse compositions and ended up landing on this one that I thought would make a great video for us to practice our hatching. So to start us out, I have just used my pencil and sketched in the lighthouse. This will be up on the screen so you can sketch it in as well. But I do like to take some sort of sharp, straight edge and give myself a guide for the lighthouse itself, because I don't want to have those lines wiggly. So I will be using that when I get going on the ink here. I'm using a pigment liner 1.2, which is actually a pretty thick line. You could use a black Sharpie. You could grab any pen that you want. I'm using a thick line today. It's just what I've been gravitating to. And so I've got this laid down in some pencil, and then we'll take it from there with the inking. The first thing I'm gonna do is really just the main lines of the lighthouse so that I get the structure. And then after that, we'll be practicing the hatching. And I also want to demonstrate a little bit up close when we get to the rocks. So when we get to the rocks, I'm gonna zoom in a bit and show you really what I'm looking for when I light the rocks. So we'll go over sort of the shadows and the line work when we get closer there. But for now, let's just mark in the basic structure of the lighthouse. There's going to be solid lines on each side, and then some a few dots, because I really want this this left side, it's my left side of the lighthouse, to be really light, and that will, I guess, go to indicate that my light source is shining from my left side over, and I want it to be pretty bright on everything that's the left and up higher, closer to the light source. So let's mark in this lighthouse. I do sort of have a mess up line there with the pencil, and I will erase that later. Now I'm tilting my sketchbook a little bit so that my hand can be in a better position. And then this line here indicates what is the balcony. So I'm gonna go right away and put in the little rails of the balcony, because then it just helps me to know what that is. This here indicates the windows, and then this, what we'll call the very top of the roof here, is, I'm going to mark it in, I'm going to put the shading in right away, and this side is going to be lighter, so we're just going to use contour hatching and curve with that line, and then my right side is going to be completely blocked in with shadow. And then before I move down the lighthouse, I'm going to add in some of the shading here underneath. This is a little wall above the balcony, and I'm just going to shade that in with a few lines and then kind of get thicker over to the right side. Now I want to have 3 arched windows going down the lighthouse. It's preferable if they're evenly spaced out, but I am eyeballing it, so they may or may not be perfectly even, but we'll use that. And then I'm going to sort of dot in, leaving some light shining, but dot in some darkness there. And then we will make a few dots sort of down this side, left side of the lighthouse to create some texture. And then we're going to start making parallel lines, like starting to hatch down the right side to begin to put in shadow on the right side of the lighthouse. And I'm using a very soft pressure. So when I blocked in the form of the lighthouse, it was pretty firm pressure, but now that I'm starting to make the little markings, I'm going pretty lightly with my pen. And then color in mostly black inside the door to create the illusion of there being an inside. And then now that we're at this foundation area of the lighthouse, we're going to leave a lot of light on the foundation and then hatch quite heavily on the right side to create that shadow and depth. And then close to the bottom where like the rocks would be casting shadow on the lighthouse, I'll go a little bit heavier with the hatching there. So this exercise is not only about using the parallel hatching lines, but really also like teaching our eye to see where shadows would be, which is what I've been practicing with these rocks that I've been doodling in my sketchbook. There we go. So now let's move on to the rocks. Before I do the rocks in my sketchbook here that I'm working in, I want to just demonstrate up close to you, for you. The rocks that I'm doing here with this lighthouse are kind of like flat, jaggedy rocks that are on a bit of a slant. So that's the top of the rock that I will mostly leave, let's just say, with the white paper to show a brightness where the light is hitting. I might end up adding some markings. And then the base of the rock, the parts that are facing us, come down, and like they can be all different shapes. And on the side, so if our sun is shining, the light source is shining this way, I only want a few hatches closer to the light source. And then as it moves farther from the light source, I'm going to get tighter together with my hatching and create like darker away from the light source. Then what we have to keep in mind is that if there's another rock just below it, that rock is going to cast a little bit of shadow here. So I'm going to do a couple of cross hatches just coming up from the other rock, just to create like that depth between the two rocks. And it will continue on. And the top of the rock, though, a lot of light is hitting it sort of farther away from the light source. I do put in a few lines or scribbles. And then once again, it would be hatching that's farther away. And then I will get closer with the hatching here. And then if another rock, I do a couple lines that way. And I hope that goes to show you sort of the way I'm playing with the light and the rocks and how I'm forming them. And so mostly because this is hatching practice, I'm trying to keep straight lines, but I am also doing a few little scribbles. So let's get in here and give this lighthouse some rocks. All right, so there we go. It's looking good. I am happy with that. I want to add a few little birds. That's kind of fun. And I will probably just do a few little finishing touches, which will be scribbling, because I want to get in there and just kind of scribble a little more depth. Sometimes what I like to do is just like loosen up a line. Like I do feel like maybe this line of the lighthouse is a little stiff for me, so I might just go and like scribble a little here and there and loosen things up. Let's not forget our tippy top of the lighthouse there, and just putting in some details, just a few here and there, is just nice. And I really try not to overdo it, because that is a classic Mary Janelle move, is to just kind of overdo my art. And so when I go back in and scribble here, I just want to do it really loosely and just a little bit. And then at some point I just say, done. That's it. all done and I have to stop. So I hope that this has inspired you today. Maybe you can grab a pen and try it along with me. But as well, maybe just seeing my version of lighting the rocks and hatching practice, and just sort of knowing that I too am practicing like how I'm holding that pen and slowing down so I'm not going too fast. All of these are really great reminders. So maybe today has just been a reminder to you to practice and slow down, focusing on quality. Thank you for being here on the channel. There's lots more scribble videos. I want to tuck this in there so it looks better. There we go. There's a lot more scribble videos here on the channel. I have a scribble chickadee. I have a scribble feather. I have hatching demonstration, as I mentioned before, and one where I do a mashup of all these different like markings to make a set of ink lips. That's really fun. And then here we've practiced hatching parallel lines, and I'm going to do one soon that is practicing the cross hatching. So similar techniques, but where I cross over. Today I didn't cross over. All these rocks have just parallel. So I'm going to be practicing all that I demonstrate in that one markings video so that we just get practicing together. Thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share it with a friend. And I'd love to hear in the comments below how this video has inspired or helped you. Bye for now, everyone.